Welcome everyone to the top chart setup video for today, March 28th, 2022. Starting off with the recently added wave setups added today, LMT, Lockheed, which so far is cooperating well with the expectation that the recent low made mid-month completed wave 4 of the circle wave 3 here, and price is turning up in the wave 5 of 3. Under that assumption, this looks reasonable as a leading diagonal up for wave 1 of that fifth, and price pulling back in wave 2. So do expect to see a little bit more near-term downside. Mentioned that when I posted the wave setup to reach that 382 to 618 retracement support between 439.30 and 428.40, where the setup would be best treated as far as the long entry within that range, and then using a stop underneath the low that was made on the 15th, so underneath 411. If you do want a tighter stop, you can place it underneath the 786 at 420.80. As long as the low that was made mid-month holds, again, looks like a convincing 1-2 start to our fifth wave. Looking at about 500 as the target for the wave 3, then a 4-5 can take price up to about 525. Next up on CRSP, we've discussed previously that within the larger count, this diagonal where price is trying to put in the bottom as that primary wave 4 and turn up in the primary wave 5. This wave 5, because of that larger diagonal context, does not need to start with a 5-wave move off of the February low. However, if we do get 5 waves up, that just allows us to place higher confidence behind that lasting bottom in place at the February low and something bullish developing from that low. So posted this at the end of last week. His price was basically approaching or entering into the support range discussed for a potential wave 4 of a leading diagonal off of the February low. And so far price has held the 50% retrace as the ideal target support and trying to turn up in the potential wave 5. So if we get a higher high from here above the current March high, then that gives us the nice 5 waves up from the February low as a leading diagonal. And that can complete a larger A wave and pull back in a B or maybe even a 1-2 as another option. So we would have likely another opportunity to add to positions, or even those who wanted to be a little bit more conservative and wait for that 5 up to enter the position on that B wave or wave 2 pullback once the leading diagonal completes. Moving on to Etsy. Price was pulling back into the target support here for a potential 1-2 start to at least this blue wave CFB and potentially within the bullish option the red wave 3 here, similar near-term expectations either way, and offered good risk reward using a stop below the March 14th low. Or if you want a tighter stop below the 786 retrace there, just underneath 124. So far price is turning up from that 618 retrace. Ideally the 1-2 has completed and price is ready to turn up in the wave 3. Breaking out above the prior highs in the month should send it up to about 184.60 to 196, assuming that the 1-2 is in place. And back above the high that was made last week and a stop, the stop could be moved up from the March low up to last week's low. Moving on to MU. Refreshed this wave setup because the stop, prior stop, I believe, from the previous attempt did get triggered, and when we were moving up from the January low, suggested placing it below that low anyways at that point. So if you happen to get stopped out, this was the opportunity to reattempt that entry point, and looking constructive so far is the potential 1-2 off of the March low. So far prices just held the upper end of the target support for that wave 2 in between a 382 and 50% retracement, but it does look like a nice little corrective flat there. And any breakout above the high that was made, I believe that was last week at 81.18, and price should continue to follow through in this wave 3, which ideally takes price up to at least 93. It's still kind of a question of whether or not we're dealing with a leading diagonal for a larger wave 1 within the blue count or a standard impulse But looking at about 93 is the next potential target to reach if we break out above 81.25. And then to go over some other charts of interest here, first up on MP, which has really provided us with some nice recent gains, strong breakout in the expectation for the blue count is wave 3 of 3, which satisfied the expected target at the high that was made last week, which means that price can pull back from here in a fourth wave, and if we do continue to see price pull back further, looking at this 382 to 50% retrace between about 49.80 and 47.60 as target support to hold for that wave 4 to set up the next move higher as wave 5 of 3. So if you did trim a little bit of profit near the highs as we were reaching that target last week and want to redeploy that capital on the wave 4 pullback, ideally do so between about 50 and 47.60. Next up on SGEN, this is still an active wave setup that is pulling back from the high that was struck so far on the month in what can count as 5 waves up. So if you're looking for a new entry or an opportunity to add to current positions, then this pullback does provide that opportunity. If we have completed 5 waves up, though, there is room to reach a little bit lower with a 382 to 618 retrace here between 134.11 and 127.50 as the target support. However, I can make a reasonable case that this is only the top of wave 3, or even count it, actually probably better count it as a expanded flat, so this is an A, B, and then C wave of the wave 4. Get another high as a 5th, and then another pullback from there. So again, it could try for further immediate upside within that extension of 5 up shown in red. But if we otherwise do see a bit more near-term downside into the 382 to 618 retrace here, then that offers a good opportunity to add to positions or enter if you're still on the sidelines. Another chart that's looking constructive recently is YUM. It did get the extension of the wave C of 4, but is otherwise looking good at a new attempt at starting that 5th wave. I'm just going to copy this count over to the micro chart here. So we have a pretty decent 3-wave pullback into last week's low and a nice bounce off of that low. Maybe this turns into wider A, B, C flat structure, but otherwise any consolidation that we see near term, if we do see one, could be bought with a stop underneath last week's low for pretty good risk reward. If this is a 1, 2, or A, B off of the March low turning up in a measured move C wave, or more if it's a 3rd wave, and a measured move fib would come in at about 127 from here, and of course that would also, assuming the large degree count of starting this wave 5, give you good positioning for that bigger picture potential. So again, looking pretty decent as far as a new attempt at starting that 5th, and you can use a tight stop if interested below last week's low here. Another chart that I think offers some interesting potential, even if this bounce is corrective under the assumption it is corrective, which is how I'm going to treat it until proven otherwise. From a percentage standpoint, there's still some decent possible shorter-term moves to play. However, ideally we do get a bit more near-term downside in the current pullback to set up the best risk reward to try to play for at least a measured move C wave to the upside. So support for this circle wave B, if we do get more near-term downside in the pullback, 159.40 to 143.90. Within that support range, attempting a long position with a stop either underneath the 764 or underneath the March low to look for a measured move C wave to the upside. Again, I think is attractive as far as a decent risk reward setup. And the final chart that I wanted to take a look at today is Upstart. I do know that there is some interest among membership in this stock, and there is a reasonable near-term setup for trading at least C wave to the upside. I'm treating the bounce also here as corrective as this B wave, but looking for further near-term upside in the wave C of that being a 1-2 start to this C wave. So turning up from the 618 retrace, not a bad spot to attempt an entry, even with a very tight stop below the low that was made last week, or if you want to give it more room, below the 786, that's at 93.67, or up to full invalidation below the March low. And looking for price to head up to the 50 or 618 retrace here between 174 and 212 in the C wave. All right, that's all I had for you guys today. See you again next time.